Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're doing some light anthurium plant chores. It all kind of centers around this plant right here, this guy. The day has finally come that I want to chop my carlablackiae. And then I have a few other plants that I've been saving to repot in this video, and if I can get it cutting, I definitely will try to. I'll try to get cuttings of everything because all my propagations are dwindling. It's looking kind of sad and empty in my prop boxes. And I don't know if you can tell by this background, it's getting quite leafy in there. Let me see if I can show you. One thing I want to try to do over the next week or two is get this looking a little bit tidier because there's so many leaves in here and the plants are getting quite big for this very small tent. And the result has been that new leaves are kind of smushing into each other. They're getting deformed. I'm not catching it in time. And also like these plants are getting so big that they're kind of starting to shade other plants, so they're not getting the optimal amount of light. So I'm just trying to like scale it back a little bit. That's a little mini project I want to get through in the next couple of weeks. It's not going to get done in one day. It's going to be a work in progress as I try to kind of clean things up and make it a little bit more manageable for myself. Because first of all, I don't want my collection to get to a point where it becomes overwhelming and I can't maintain it. And then the second thing is I'm probably going to get quite a lot busier in the next few months where I can't be selling plants all the time anymore. I think I have 4 or 5 plants to work on today. I don't remember off the top of my head. I have it listed in my phone. So we're going to do the usual thing. I'm going to show you which plants we're going to work on and then we're going to get to work. This video is sponsored by my friends at Palm Street. So I'm really excited to talk about Palm Street today because I want to believe that I had a small part in putting this thing together that I'm about to talk about. So a few weeks ago, the Homebody, which is a seller on the Palm Street app, it's Fabiana and Ryan, they went live at Silverchrome Gardens with Bill Rotolante, and they did a little greenhouse tour and they just sold plants out of there, which they often will sell a lot of Tazula plants, Silverchrome plants, dock block plants. So I was talking to Palm Street and I was asking them, is there anything going on the week of July 1st? And they were like, well, what do you have in mind? And I was like, well, you know how like Rare Plant Fairy went live at Dock Block Conservatory, or the Homebody went live at Silverchrome, and they were like, well, if you want them to go live at Silverchrome again, we'll just ask them to do it again. So I was like, okay, let's do it again. So Friday, July 5th, the Homebody is going live again at Silverchrome Gardens. Bill Rotolante will be there. They'll do a small tour. It's going to start at 12 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to run for a few hours. I was told that Silverchrome closes at 4:30, so it can go up to that point. I don't know how long it's going to be. I was really sad to miss the first one, so I'm really looking forward to joining on this one. I won't be able to stay the whole time because Fridays are our shop days and we also go live on Fridays, but I will definitely be there. Hopefully you guys are watching this video the week that it goes live because then you'll actually be able to catch the live stream. But I asked them like what's kind of like a sneak peek. I don't have pictures, but what can we expect from this live? And this is what they came back with. They're going to do red crystallinums, dressleri crosses, at least one portillae dorito form clone, pink lemonade crosses, hoffmaniix crossed with ace dark form, and there's going to be a lot more than that, but that's just like a few that they wanted to highlight. There's also going to be a promo code for this. The code is SKG10 and it will be $10 off your purchase. You can preload it into your account so it automatically apply, or you can use it during the checkout process, but it'll only apply to not just this live, but to transactions from the Homebody. I don't know how long it'll last for though, so just think of it as like it's applicable to this live. So I'll leave a referral link in the description for anyone who hasn't signed up yet and you want to see this live. New users will get $10 site credit, a 10% coupon, and free shipping on your first 3 orders. Obviously, you don't have to buy anything. You just join the live. Last time they were asking Bill some questions. So if you ever wanted to ask Bill anything, now is the time to do so. And I'll also leave a link to the live stream in the description as well. So click that. Make sure you hit the bell icon. Also, just as an aside, hitting the bell icon helps that seller. So if you just want to support them, just hit the bell icon because it will bring their live up in the feed. So it's a little bit more visible for people. So yeah, I hope to see you guys there and see you guys in the chat. Again, I won't be able to stay too long, but my hope is that Bill is able to show us his stripey because he is one of the few people I know that own this plant. I think this is becoming my top wish list plant, period. I want this plant so bad. I know I can't afford it. So I just want to see it like in person. Like live in person. Thank you so much to Palm Street and the Homebody and Silverchrome for putting this event on. And thank you to Palm Street for sponsoring this video. And with that said, let me show you the plants we're going to repot. Oh, this leaf is so delicate. This is the new leaf on my Carla. This is Carla Wu 1. It's starting to harden off now. So this is about as big as it's going to get, I think. It's not really any bigger than the leaf before it. That's the leaf before it. It has just finished flowering, so you can see that the spathe is browning. I've collected the pollen off of it, and it's starting to flower again. Here's the new flower. It actually, the flower before it was this small as well. And you can see like how much it grows. The spathe actually grew an alarming amount. It was very impressive. And it's kind of interesting that like the spathe browns in the way that like a rose petal would. So that was my first Carla flower ever, and I was able to use the pollen for 2 plants. Let me put her down here. I want to show it to you if possible. We're not repotting it today, but I want to show you the plants that I pollinated. So this is the first plant that I pollinated. This is my Mag Chris crossed with carlablackiae from Amanda. This is the inflow. It's gone to pollen now, which, side note, if your inflow goes to pollen after you pollinate it, that doesn't mean it didn't take. So I kept that little jewelry bag over top of it, but this is the inflow. It's looking pretty promising because I've noticed that the spadix has started to swell a little bit. It's a bit fatter and it's starting to turn green. So we'll keep a close eye on it. I won't get my hopes up. I will be sad if it doesn't take, but I won't cry about it like a baby. I'm so tempted to collect the pollen off of it and use it. Here's the thing, like you don't typically take the pollen after it's already been pollinated because I also have Carla pollen on it. So any crosses you do with it after, you can't say definitively for sure that it's whatever crossed with Mancris Carla. But the alternative is if it was contaminated, it would be contaminated with Carla. So is that the worst thing? Not really, but in any case, I don't know. Just for the integrity of like the accuracy of the cross, I probably won't do it, but it's tempting for sure. But anyway, this is the newest leaf. It's still quite floppy, so it still has some growing to do, but it's really pretty, and I do think it will produce some really cute babies, especially with the Woo One Carla because it's so veiny. There's like Mag Chris genes in there. I think it's gonna be like a fat, wide, large growing veiny Carla is my hope. But the first thing is I have to make sure I never let it dry out and just like baby this plant and just keep watching this to see if it starts to form berries. And even if it does form berries, there's always a chance that it doesn't form berries in the end. I have one infructescens back there, my dark forgetii that I pollinated with tofu. It was like probably 6 weeks into producing berries and it was just like, nah. So that batch is not happening. It's kind of sad, but that happens. It does happen, and I don't really know why. I never let it dry out. So yeah. The other plant that I use the Carla pollen on is my Carla bvep. So I guess both of these are going to be like 75% Carla. This one I'm less sure about because I did the Mancris Carla when it first went receptive and the Carla pollen was a little bit fresher. This one, I just don't know. I did damage the spadix a little bit. You can see there's like a little scratches on it, and it's a very small inflow. This is like the 3rd flower on this plant and it just grows really small inflows for me. So for some reason when I pollinated it, this peduncle got really flimsy and soft, and then like I came back to my tent and this was flopped over. I was like, what the heck? So I left it for a second and it perked up and it started to point upwards. And in my experience with this plant, when it flowers and is not successfully pollinated, the spadix will start to turn orange. This one, I will not be surprised if it doesn't take. Another plant I want to chop, but now I'm unsure if it has enough roots on top, but I will attempt it because this plant has never been chopped. But this is Bessier Af Spider crossed with Ralphinum Fort Sherman. This was bred by Anthuriums, also known as Spider Ralphman. The substrate's kind of dry. It's not bone dry, but it's quite dry on top. And I intentionally didn't water it because I was planning on repotting it today. Well, technically it doesn't need repot. I just want to chop it. This is such a nice cross, and I was hesitant to do it for so long because I'm finally getting good growth on it. So if anything, if I'm going to chop it, it's going to be a very small chop at the bottom. I'm going to try to maintain as much roots as possible for the top cutting. This plant I wanted to chop when I thought it had a bigger stem, but Charmaine told me that she had already taken a cutting off of it before she gave it to me. So this came from Amanda. It was shipped to Charmaine in California. Charmaine brought it up here with her, and I thought she hadn't cut it yet. So what we typically do with these plants is like there's one of each plant and we just kind of split it up, and when we take our first cuttings, we give the first one to the other person, so we end up both having the plant. So usually with Amanda's plants, when she sends us plants, they have the most massive stems and they're already ready for a chop But this time, I don't know if it's going to have the stem because Charmaine already took that cutting. But at the very least, I do want to get it into a bigger pot. This little cup is not root bound, but it's quite full of roots. So I want to get it into like a square pot that's bigger than this. Did I already say what it was? This is Carla Blackiae crossed with Luxurians. And I believe this is a Paul Marcellini cross. It's taking every ounce of willpower for me to not just pull plants I'm not even repotting and just like show it to you. Okay, well, I mean, let's do this one. This one is Carla Wu 2. I do need to cut it, so I'll show it to you now because the next time you see it probably will already be chopped. There's a new leaf here that I'm waiting for it to expand and harden before I chop it. It's pretty full of roots. It's not as root bound as my Wu 1. That pot, that big pot is so full of roots. But this one is going to be chopped for a trade. Same as the Carla Wu 1. It's going to the same person for the same trade if it happens. If it doesn't, then I just have Carla props. But this one is much smaller than the Wu 1. I don't know if it's going to be like choppable because the internodes on Carla's are pretty tight. So if anything, I might only be able to get a really small cutting off of it. But yeah, just to show you that one will be cut soon, probably off camera. Next one I want to chop. I forgot about this tiny flower. This one is Nigrolaminum GG crossed with portillae. This is from Woohoo Tropicals. This is the newest leaf. They're just so delicate that they get dinged up as they emerge from the sheath. This one must be choppable. It grew so many leaves since I got it. I don't doubt that there's enough stem on there to cut. It's whether I have enough roots on top to sustain the plant. So that's kind of how I go about my anthurium cuttings. I play it very safe. But yeah, I think that's what we're working on today. So I don't know. Do I have enough space to do it here or do I need to move? I probably need to move. Okay, hold on. Okay, I feel like this might be workable. We're repotting on a perlite bin again because I still don't have a table. We're using my trusty dusty tree fern soil. It's not that chunky, but it's nice and fluffy. I have my bin of leca here. We just need pots. I have so many pots right now. It's not even funny. It's really nice feeling to not have like barely any pots because I can just repot to my heart's content. I think we're gonna do extra large square pot for, I think. Because if I take cuttings, I think the root system will be smaller. We'll see. I already know I'm gonna damage this fresh leaf because it's still soft. So we're gonna try our best not to damage it. But look at these roots. This has quite a large root system. This will definitely be the most difficult repot. Will you just come out? Yep. Ooh. I'm going to just kind of loosen the leca layer at the bottom and I'm going to reuse this leca layer for the next pot. This orchid pot, the circle one, is slightly bigger than this one. Not by much, but it is a little bit bigger. Actually, you know what? It's kind of the same. No, okay, we're going to use the square pot. You guys can't really see, but just putting the old leca back into the new pot. And just going to top it up with a bit more. Okay, now is the awkward part, which is I need to loosen all the roots so I can see the stem. I've got the new leaf here just right by my face so I can keep an eye on it. This is probably like the most nerve-wracking chop I've done in a really long time. Not that I think the top cutting is going to die or anything. It's just that I know that cutting it will set it back a little bit. Is it going to keep flowering? A lot of anthuriums, actually chopping it will kind of prompt it to flower, or it will just kind of continue flowering. I just don't know about Carla's because this is the first Carla I ever got and I've never chopped it. I've never grown a Carla from a stem propagation. It's always been from seed, so I'm just a little bit nervous because I've also heard stories about how slow they are to wake up from being cut and stuff like that, and I've been enjoying the growth rate on this one so much. It just grows non-stop. I guess it won't be the end of the world if those two plants I pollinated with Carla pollen take, because it's something else to look forward to. And it's okay that this one slows down because it has been so good to me and like so fast. And at the back of my mind, I know at some point it's going to outgrow my tent. It's going to have to be grown in ambient conditions. I just don't want that day to come. So it's probably not a bad thing if it slows down a little bit. But the internodes of Carla are so tight that I just like, at this size even, you can see how fat the stem is here. I'm not even 100% sure I'll be able to cut it. Okay, I'm just gonna cut to when I finish undoing these roots because it's gonna take me a little while. Okay, so I got the vast majority of the soil off and it's not looking good. There's so little stem. I think from bottom to top, it's like this long. I regret everything. In a perfect world, I would have gotten 2 cuttings off of it. I would be able to trade one and give one to Charmaine. But looking at this, I'll be lucky if I can even get 1 cutting. So what I typically do, let me turn it around so you can see the stem a little bit better. So what I will typically do is work my way from the top. So I look at the roots from the top and I just go down until I feel like I've gotten enough roots that I think will sustain the larger top cutting. And then whatever is left below that is the stem that I'm going to cut. And like I said, I'm like not very brave with these cuttings, especially when it's like a plant that I love so much. I want to keep so much of these top roots, these really fat roots up top. So if I take away those from the top cutting, there's like no stem. How did it get so thick so fast? It basically goes from like this thick to like this thick within a few millimeters. It's actually insane. So the first Carla I ever owned was a bottom cutting from Amanda. She sent me basically, it looked like a grain of rice attached to some roots, and it didn't make it because the cutting was so small, and I now understand why, because there is no internodal spacing on this plant. So now I have to decide, like, do I think it could survive off this fat root with this and maybe this, if I can include it? I think it can. So are we gonna be brave? I can't show you where I cut it. I'll only be able to show it to you after I made the cut. But I think we're gonna have to just be brave. I don't like this. I don't like it. I'm just gonna do it. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is so hard to show you. This is the roots that I'm keeping. I'm gonna lay this plant down so gently and see. It's kind of ridiculous that these roots are attached to, can you see how tiny that stem is? So what we're gonna do is a little bit of root trimming on the bottom because I don't have space for a humongous pot with this much stem attached to it. That small bit of stem does not need all these roots to support it. So I'm gonna just like cut the oldest roots off first and go from there. These are some of the oldest roots. So I'm going to chop those off. So this root, for some reason, I like the best. So I'm going to keep you. And then I'm just going to cut off some of these like secondary roots here. Essentially, I needed to fit into this size square pot. So I'm going to cut until I think it can fit in there. Okay, that's what I'm keeping. It's still a lot of root for this tiny. I don't think the camera is going to be able to show how small it is, but you can kind of see some green down here. That's where it starts. It's probably about 1 centimeter long. It's so tiny. There is soil everywhere. So now in looking at this, I can almost say with certainty I won't be able to cut my Wutu for a long time. It smells so nice. It kind of smells like sweet. Which inflow is making that smell? It smells really nice. I think it might be the Megachris Carla. This is a healthy root system. There is so much stem. It's crazy. I think the next time, if I can get it to root out from up here, it's going to be way easier to cut it. So I think I got the hardest chop out of the way. From now on, it should be a little bit easier. I'll definitely be checking on that prop every day, multiple times a day, to check for any signs of decline. So I'm going to definitely make sure I pot the roots right up to the edge of the pot, like the sides of the pot, so I can monitor the root growth. Have I damaged you? Actually, it looks okay still. Okay, I think I have it positioned. You won't be able to see it because these leaves are so ding dang big. Maybe I'll do something like this. Ooh, you know what? This is a good candidate to get some great white dry on the roots. Just gonna tap a little bit so it's directly on the roots. And I'm also gonna water with great white water. I don't usually do this, only for my most high pressure repots or cuts. So now it already has that flower emerging, right? I don't know if you can see it, it's right here. I'm pretty sure it's gonna continue flowering, but for sure it's not going to be a mom for a while. I think it's so important for Anthurium mother plants to have a nice established root system. I actually had this like question, and I don't know the answer to this. I asked Amanda and she wasn't really sure, but my question was like, we know that the mother plant needs to be quite established and healthy in order to grow strong seedlings, right? So if you pollinate a plant that's too young and the inflow is really small and the root system is not very established, is not very healthy. If it goes to full berry formation, you get seeds off of it, you can kind of expect the seedlings themselves to not be very strong. I mean, this is kind of like why breeders will usually select for vigor. So they'll usually go on to breed. So let's say they produce a batch of Anthurium hybrids. From there, they select for characteristics that they want to further breed along. But the vigor of that seedling is also going to be really important. So the ones that grow the biggest and the strongest is what a lot of breeders will prioritize. Because if a weak plant will produce weak seeds or weak seedlings, then you don't want to keep that breeding line going. But my question was, what if the pollen parent was a weak plant? What would that do? And I don't necessarily mean that the plant in general is a weak plant, like it has a really hard time growing and it's not very vigorous. I just mean that that plant is currently in a weak state, like it had root rot, or, you know, like it's not necessarily just in the genes, it's just not having a good time. Would that have any bearing on what just fell? Oh, the inflow. Did I do that? Well, there it is. It's okay. I've got the pollen off of it. So obviously I think the answer to that will depend on like in what way is that plant weak. But I guess like specifically my question is if it's just like not having a good time, not that it's a weak plant. So let's say, for example, this plant, which we know is not a weak plant, it has a lot of vigor, but it got annihilated by thrips and all the roots rotted, and it has like 3 roots and it's just like growing really mangled leaves, and then it flowered and I used that pollen for something else. Would that pollen be any different than, let's say, if I were to use the pollen from this plant when it was like really happy and thriving? I'm inclined to guess that it would not make much of a difference to the health of the seedlings, and it's more to do with the mom. But if anybody knows, I'd be really curious. I'd like to say, are there any academic papers on it, but I don't know if I'll actually have the time to read through it. So I'm, I guess, more looking for anecdotal stuff. Okay, I'm just gonna check that all the gaps are filled-ish. Yeah. I was able to keep quite a lot of roots right around the edge, so it should be able to, in theory, I should be able to monitor this really well. I made the soil as high as possible because I want to get it rooting into the substrate from the top. So that's where a lot of the hormones are concentrated, so that's, I think, where the next roots are going to push out of. And we're just going to drench you in great white water now. This substrate is super dry, so I'm just going to make sure that it's really deeply watered, but not to the point that there's like a whole reservoir, because there's way less roots in this pot than previously, as you guys saw. So I think that's good. It's quite heavy now. These little saucers, they're not even really meant to be saucers. These are from Dollarama. They're like drawer organizers. I bought these because I was so desperate for saucers, and I feel like either you're gonna spend quite a lot of money on these like flimsy ones that look like this, these ones, because these aren't even very cheap unless you order from Alibaba and it's like you order 1,000 pieces at a time. I think these are pretty good. They're not super cheap though. If you just wanted like a handful of them to use for larger square pots, it's not a bad option. I wasn't joking when I said I have a lot of pots now. I bought a bunch from Jing, and then right after that, Lauren was getting rid of all these square pots. Like she was getting rid of pots that she didn't have time to clean. So I got another bin of square pots. I just have so many pots, it's exhilarating. So the bottom cutting will just about fit in this. I'm gonna pop some leca at the bottom. And I think I'm just gonna reuse what the mother plant was in, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with this soil. You fit in here. Kind of. It's snug, but you'll fit. I'm still kind of shocked that that cutting was so tiny. So since I only got one cutting off it, now Charmaine probably has to wait another 3 or 4 months for her cutting. I don't think she's in a hurry, honestly. Like, I don't think she wants more plants than she actually has. By the way, Charmaine is doing okay, all things considered. She did have to do an emergency C-section, and it was traumatizing for her. She didn't even want one in the first place because she's really scared of it. Understandably so, but she's doing fine. She's trucking through. Okay, so this one's done. I need to label it. Carla really horrible writing. And then now we gotta water you. That was really nerve-wracking, but the worst nerves are not yet over. This I think might take a while to wake up, so I'll be nervous until it wakes up. I will be reusing the leftover soil, by the way. What I'll probably do, my lazy method, is I just leave this bowl out, let it dry out, and I chuck it back in. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I've been doing that when there's not like a lot of root rot. There was no root rot in this plant actually. So I feel like this soil is super healthy and doesn't necessarily need to be sterilized, because if I bake this soil, it will also break down the substrate a little bit faster. So the more I can reuse it without baking, I think the more, I guess that's my preferred way is what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's do a like nice chilled out one. Carla Lux. I don't know what the stem situation is like. Oh wow. Even with Charmaine's cutting, it could be cut again. Should we do it? Why not? Look it. Funny how this had more stem length than my Carla. Ooh. Ah. I'm gonna cut like a centimeter off the bottom. So here's my cutting. There's multiple nodes on here. And then the top cutting has all the roots, so perfect. I think I really needed to do some plant chores because I was in like, not a foul mood. I've been having a week where like things are frustrating. So we're trying to book our flights to the UK, which we want to do it later this year. I haven't honestly traveled that much in the last few years. Like I've traveled once since the pandemic started. Like, no, I've flown twice. One was for work. So I've only traveled as a holiday once. And so I don't know like what is going on with these airlines and booking sites, but it has been so frustrating. We decided not to fly in the summer because that's the most expensive time to go. We don't need to go in the summer. In fact, I'd rather not go in the summer because I don't like the summer crowds and stuff like that. So we chose like more closer to like November, December, and it's way cheaper. And then we thought maybe we're going to just make a stop, like just do one connection. Because I prefer to fly direct because I hate flying. And so it turns out that you can fly through Reykjavik and it's cheaper. I've never been to Iceland. So I was like, maybe we can make like more of like a slightly longer layover. So at least we get to spend a day in Reykjavik. So like I look on the sites. It's like, it's there. It's a suggested route. I honestly tried to book it like 10 times and it kept saying like, we were unable to process it. So I was trying over the course of a few days. I would wait like a couple of hours in between each try, and then it kept doing the same. And then finally I was able to book it. And even between that, I was like, I got to the point where they would take my credit card and it would be like, could not process your credit card. Finally, I was able to book it. I was like, oh, thank God. Like I was getting really excited, started looking at stuff in Iceland. I was started like actually planning the trip. I was also really excited because in booking this far in advance, the flight is not full yet. So I was able to do a seat selection and I got really good seats at somehow a pretty good price for those seats. Like they now charge you to select seats, right? So I chose exit row seats and I only had to pay like $20 to $35 depending on like the length of the flight. So I was like, this is great. Like it's going to be a longer journey, but it's going to be more comfortable. We'll get a stop in Iceland, stretch our legs a bit, and then go on to London. I got an email this morning that they refunded our checked bags because I'd added checked bags to it. Obviously we need to check our bags. And then they refunded my seat selection. And I just know that they're not going to let me get those seats again at the prices that I wanted. They're probably going to make me pay like $100+ per flight, which I'm not going to do. So after I film, I need to get on the phone with them and be like, what the heck? Like if you weren't going to sell it to me at that price, why did you offer it in the first place? Anyways, this Carla Lux is done. It has lots more room to stretch its legs. And then I'm going to get some great white in you and pop you back in the tent. Doesn't need to be drenched. And the little cutting, I think I'm just going to pop it back in the cup that it came from. Where did it go? Oh no, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Oh, thank God. I thought I potted it into that pot. Okay, I'm going to just reuse this leca. This is probably too big of a cup for such a small little cutting. Like there's barely any roots on it, but that's fine. Label you Carla Lux. Some great white. This one's gonna go in a dome at 100% humidity. It's just gonna be more light. If I put it in my tent, it's gonna be shaded by other leaves. Okay, Spider Ralph, man. I'm gonna reuse this pot because the roots haven't massively filled it out. And if I manage to get a cutting off of it, it won't have that many roots. I also think that there's gonna be some either dry rot or wet rot in here from old roots that I never dealt with. And I just turned a blind eye. Doesn't smell rotty, but yeah, you can see some roots got dried out at the tips. Yeah, not the most robust root system, but we could probably get at least one. Wow, there's a lot of stem. I can see in the past where I have root rot treated because a lot of these roots are like cut off at the tips. Let's cut some of these dead tips off. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I knew the root system wasn't going to be super robust and healthy on it. Holy crap, there's a lot of stem. It goes all the way down to here. It's all this. It's like this much stem. I can at least get 2 cuttings off this, I think. But I do want to make sure that the top has a lot of roots. So I'm going to say I can keep these roots for the top. I'm going to cut below it and then cut again if there's room for it. What is falling? That's my top cut. I hope it doesn't freak out, but you know, I'm gonna expect that it freaks out a little bit. So this is the very active axillary bud right there. And below that, I can see another one that is actually looks like it's starting to activate as well. Because you can see, can you see here, a little bit of green poking out of that. It's pretty big. So I think I'm just gonna make this a single node cutting up top. So that's the top cutting with a very active growth point. And then the bottom cutting, I'll leave this one bigger. So this one has multiple nodes. So there's this one, this axillary bud here. And then there's also this one that looks like it's kind of activated too. It's weird that they're all somewhat active, but I'll leave this one as multiple growth points because the bottom of the stem is going to be a lot more juvenile in the first growths. The first leaf off of this, I expect to be larger of a leaf. It's not going to look so much like a seedling. That's a bit much. Speaking of traveling, I haven't decided yet, but is anyone going to be at IAS this year? I want to go every year, but the timing of it and the pricing of it, I just have to make sure that it works. I don't know anyone personally that's going, and I don't travel alone. I know it's like such an exhilarating feeling traveling alone, but I don't think that it's for me. So I just have to decide if I can make it. I don't know yet, but are any of you going? I want to go so bad. I just want to sit at a table and bid on plant auctions. That sounds like so much fun. Okay, did I do both of them? Yeah. Both of these little cuttings are done. I just got the growth points protruding up above the substrate. I think Mom will go back into the same size pot, but I'll give you a clean one. I feel like I just got mosquito bite right on my nose. It feels kind of swollen and really itchy. Can you guys see it? Can you see it? There's like a... It feels really red. I feel like if I touch it, it's going to get more red and it's going to be really obvious I have mosquito bite. So after this bin of tree fern soil, I'll show you how full it is. It's like that. I will be out of my soil, like my soil component. So I'm gonna be looking around. I think I want to try, and I've never tried it before, but I've heard great things about it, is the Fox Farm. There's just so much stem on here. Should I cut it again? So here's the thing. If I cut it again, it would only leave me like a few like thick short roots up here, which typically I'd be fine with. But this plant has not been like as strong in the root department for me historically. So I'm not like super confident that it's gonna root out again in no time. Like if it was my red crystal Lux, which roots like an insane amount in a super short amount of time, I would be fine with a really small root system. But this one, you know what? I'm gonna leave it. I got 2 cuttings off it. Let's not get greedy. Okay, after this one, I was gonna do that GG port, but then I might have to swap it out for a different plant that I was planning to cut for a really long time, and I think it's finally ready to be cut. And this little offset I want to remove from it. I was looking at it yesterday and it looks like kind of a tricky cut again. Just like you're gonna see, it's kind of like this Jenga Tetris situation. It's gonna require some maneuvering. It'd probably be easier with like a X-Acto knife kind of situation. So I think we're gonna do a last minute switch out of the GG port and do that other plant. All right, that one is done. It looks a little bit lopsided, but it should kind of figure itself out. I'd like this leaf to look a little bit straighter. Do I have a saucer for you? Where'd your saucer go, dear? Oh, here it is. I probably should have sprinkled some Great White Dry on the roots, but that's okay. Okay, the plant I wanted to switch out is the contaminated Carla or Carla bench hybrid. So the offset I wanted to remove is this one here. I've been waiting for it to grow its own roots. So here is the root system. It started to grow. And oftentimes when anthuriums produce an offset, that new growth, that new little plantlet that's growing out the side is going to protrude out more and have like a little bit of a stem. But this one is so tight to the stem. I don't know if you can see. Here's where it begins, but it's just like in one piece. So I don't even know if I could, like ideally with most plants, I could just cut it here and remove that little plantlet. But this one looks like it might be really difficult to cut. And I'm wondering if I'm gonna just have to like cut it the traditional way, like I don't really want to do that because you can see how tight those internodes are as well. I want to see if I can just snip it off the side and be able to separate it that way. I'm gonna try it. I probably will regret it, but you know. Well, I did it. I'm not proud of it, but here it is. There's a root, there's a growth point, the nodes are there. Will it survive? We shall see. I don't remember all my Carla hybrids being that way. Certainly my Carla BVEP was much easier to cut, like a regular anthurium. This one was just like as tightly stacked as my Woo one. You know what? If it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it. But I know that the mother plant will be fine. That was probably the least disruptive to the mother plant. But we're going to get the mother plant into this bigger pot. It's not the biggest pot I have, but it's the biggest pot I have in this room. And it is bigger. I'm going to pot this offset off camera. I might not even pot it today. I might get it into water for a few days just to see this root extend a little bit more. And then pot it into probably tree fern, like amended tree fern, not tree fern soil. I feel like I was talking about something before, but I don't remember what it was now. But if I didn't complete my train of thought earlier, it's because I got distracted by the thought of this plant. This one is so rooty. I've been waiting to repot it for a while. Oh my gosh. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Okay. I'm tempted to make a cutting at the bottom. I wasn't going to make a butt cut, but now I'm tempted. I started to like pull away some substrate from the stem, and I feel like it's longer than my Woo one. I'm not 100% sure though, but there's only one way to find out. This plant I also got from my friend Jose, and he just like never cuts his plants. So anything I got from him has a fully intact stem. Okay, there's way more stem than the Carla on this actually. I stand corrected. Why is it just so clumpy at the top though? I might cut some roots in the process by accident, but they're sacrificial roots. So there's the bottom. Quite a few nodes on here, but they're going to be very juvenile. Lots of roots that I will probably trim a little bit, probably just do like that. And then I can get another cutting off of this as well. I'm going to prioritize leaving as many nice thick roots for the top as possible because I think this one's about to flower and I don't want to slow it down because this is such a pretty plant, even though like it's technically a no ID because we don't know what was contaminated with, but it's so pretty. And the emergent leaves are just so pretty and purple and burgundy. Oh no, that's a lot of roots. Actually, you know what? That's fine. I think I recall when I repotted this, when I got it from Jose, it had a lot of dry rot. It didn't have way more roots than this, if I recall correctly. This middle cutting has a lot of roots. Oh yeah, the auxiliary buds right here at the top. I'm going to pot all the cuttings up off camera. I mean, it's not really anything interesting. And we're just gonna pot up the top. I think we're gonna still stick with the big pot because it filled out that square pot in so little time. I wanted to give it lots of time in this pot. Okay, I know you couldn't see like any of that, but this one's now potted up. I've tried to bury as much of the stem as possible because a lot of roots were forming up at the top. And do I have a saucer for you? Oh, I did. Kind of small. Oh no, I have this one. Now remember, there's not a lot of roots on here, so it doesn't need to be so wet. Just want to make sure that those roots stay hydrated and that plant can drink efficiently. I am so nervous about my Carla. I'm looking at it right now. It's very normal after a cut for the leaves to look a little bit soft. So I'm going to quickly finish like potting up these little cuttings, and I'm going to shut this tent and just like pray that it can soak up all the ambient humidity and also take up the water in the substrate. But that is the last plant done. I wish you guys could see how much soil is all over the floor right now. I recently got a magic broom. I think that's what they're called. It's basically like a broom but without bristles. It's like a squeegee, and you just sweep like that and it just like squeegees all the dust and everything. Charmaine's been talking about it for so long and I wanted it for so long, and then I just kept putting it off because I was like, do I need another broom in this room? So I was sampling it in her plant room and it works so good. I mean, it's the same concept as what I love to use like the bench scraper for my potting area, but it's for your floor. It's not as easy as a vacuum cleaner, but it has the same effect because it gets everything. I don't even know how we got on the topic of brooms, but anyway, please send healthy, growing vibes to my Carla cutting. Everything else I feel like has a good chance of waking up. Things are waking up way faster now that it's like super warm. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again to Palm Street for sponsoring this video. Again, I'll be leaving a link to the Homebodies Live. That's on July 5th, 12 p.m. Eastern. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!